Welcome to Q&A Wednesday on the Brilliant Fools podcast. My name is Adam Green with Greenhouse Services. You can catch us at greenhouseghs.com. That's right on the screen here, but it's GREENE houseghs.com. Let's go over a few questions and answers. And honestly, these are questions that I have heard over the years or have just pulled off the internet for now. As I'm getting started, got to have some questions to answer, so that is what I am doing now. And if you have any questions for me, if you're watching this, you can either comment or you can go to greenhouseghs.com, send in a question there. Get in touch with me if you want me to answer directly. I'm happy to have chat, a phone call, no cost, and just kind of see where you are and what you have going and what I can help out with and how we can grow together. So let's jump right into it and look at a few things here. One of the questions has to do with cash flow pressures that are going on. What do I need to do about the rising costs of things, materials, labor, rent? And this is something that, especially in the past few years, I really had more of this question than I have at any other point before that, and pretty much the 20 years before it. Just because we had unprecedented inflation, rising costs. It's amazing how when the government creates money and just shoves it into the economy, how it will do that. But also with COVID happening and supply chains getting massively disrupted, that really put a burden on materials as well. But then I had I had someone that I worked with for a little while who I didn't end up working out, and you'd probably be able to tell why, because he couldn't answer this question, and he wouldn't listen to answers to the question. It's one of those things that it's almost common sense and kind of an easy thing to answer, but a difficult thing to implement. Because when costs are rising, then what do you have to do on the other end? You kind of have to increase what you're charging for your product or service. And this particular person that I worked for, or worked with, tried to work with, worked for a little bit, tried to work with them, but they did amazing work. They had a high quality product that they put out. Could have been charging a lot more than they were charging. Others around them were charging a lot more. They had a good base of clientele as well, repeat customers that kept coming back, but they were unwilling to increase the cost, unwilling to increase the costs were increasing. They were unwilling to increase what they were charging for it, and because of that, they were under a lot of stress. Their margins were super slim. They couldn't afford to pay their people more, which makes it really hard to keep people if you can't pay them more, if you can't be competitive when it comes to salary. They didn't have rent issues in this case, but rent obviously right now is something else that keeps rising. But keeping an eye on those things and what to do about them, I mean, really, it's just increasing that cost. But when you have people that you've established relationships with, and this business owner had established relationships with his customers, with the clientele, and didn't want to increase rates on them. The owner also wanted to increase their own, they wanted to increase the number of jobs they were getting. So they weren't willing to increase prices because they were sure that they were not going to be able to get the jobs. Well, when you're looking at it, especially when I was looking at it with them, what they were offering was so much higher of a quality than what else was out there, that they were in the price range they were sitting at. So if they increased their prices, they really weren't competing with other people. In fact, the jobs they were kind of getting, that people were reaching out to them for, the owner didn't want these jobs. He was like, I don't really want to do this. This isn't really in the vein of what I want to be doing, but I got to do it. I got to take it. It was a mental thing. And honestly, because this owner was a believer, and it came from, I think, a lack of understanding who they were in Christ and just exactly what Christ has already paid for and the totality of it. Because they're putting out very high quality products, much better than their competitors in the price range they were at. They could have increased their prices and still been higher quality than their competitors. But the mentality was a lack, a mentality of lack, as opposed to the abundance that God gives us and how much of an abundant life he wants us to have. And when I say abundance, I'm not talking about material possessions that we got to go out there and we've got to think of a health and wealth kind of deal and we're going to have all kinds of money. I'm saying abundance in really everything in all of life. But because of the lack mentality in this one area of money, like that transpired into a lot of other areas of this business owner's life as well, and this especially as it pertained to the business. And he was convinced, I can't say no to jobs even if I don't want them. And to me, that just means if I'm saying that, then I have a mentality that God will not provide for me. Especially when I look at it from a standpoint of this job will give me a little bit of money for a lot of stress. And if I were to pass on it in favor of these other jobs that will be coming soon, they're going to give me a lot less stress. I'm going to be doing what I like to do and what I know God has skilled me at, and I'm going to get paid a lot more for it. And if I could continue in that vein, if I could just hold out a little longer, there's something that I tell my kids often, which is, if you'll be patient, you won't have to wait as long. And that is so hard to do, though. I mean, it's so easy for me to sit here and say that, and yet I can think of things that I'm doing right now that I'd rather not be doing. But I really have worked hard to try to eliminate the things that cause me a lot of stress and don't compensate for it. And so the jobs that I am taking now, if they don't pay much, then there's not a lot of stress. It's just a very quick, let me get it done and get it out of here kind of situation. Or they're paying more per hour. I'm thinking of something I was working on this morning that, excuse me, it's paying me more for the work that it's a little more stressful, not in a bad way. It's more like a challenge, a stretch more than stress, but I'm getting compensated for it. And I have worked to try to get to that point, because I've been in that same situation before where I was taking, let's take taxes that I've done in the past. For instance, taking on people's tax returns and charging very low rates, very far under, not far under just market prices, but charging less than an H&R Block would charge, charging less than like a TurboTax might charge for a self-prepared return. And I'm over here doing it and increasing stress levels, and it's not living in the thing that it doesn't make sense. Like, I say it and I'm telling myself this as I'm talking, but at the same time, it's so hard for me to really implement that in a way that that isn't just, okay, let me do this for my sanity, let me do this for my family's sanity, but in a way that puts me in the right mindset, that I have a loving Father who wants to give me good things and wants to see me excel in the areas that he's giving me given me gifts and talents and skills. Um, but I'm not using them because I'm taking on this other stuff because I have this mentality of lack and God's not going to provide kind of situation. So if I have rising costs, all that to say, what do? Well, I need to get my mind straight. I need to step back, talk to myself just like I've done right now and say, okay, let me charge the amount that is good, that is right, be fair and good to people, but I've got to cover my costs and I've got to be fair and good. If I'm employing people, I've got to be fair and good to them as well. And if I'm not charging enough, then I can't pay them enough to not only keep them working with me and for me, but your employees can see if there's not a future where they are. I've been there before. I've been there in a few different areas. Gotten pretty good at it because I've worked for a lot of small businesses. I say a lot, several small businesses. And I can see pretty quickly now, okay, this is not going to go anywhere. I see exactly what this owner is doing and where they're at. And speaking of that, one of the reasons I mentioned that is because that leads into another question here, which is one of the people or teams issues and attracting good employees. How do I keep good employees when I can't match big company salaries? I have a high employee turnover due to competition from larger firms or remote job offers, and how do I match that? This is an interesting one, and I've seen it play out, and I've seen a lot of, especially professional services industries, lawyers, accountants, people like that. I've seen a lot of them complain about this. And I've seen some take the step of actually trying to make it as remote as possible, their jobs as remote as possible, which can be good and that can be fine. I've seen that fail in some ways. I've seen people have a much harder time with that. I've even, the two accounting firms I can think of have gone out to the Philippines and they've outsourced their jobs from overseas, having remote workers and being able to pay them a lot less. Those are things you can do. The question I have, if I'm going to outsource the work to remote workers, is who am I going to have that can start? Because if my company is around long enough and I continue to take on new clients, it will grow. That's the nature of a company. Who am I going to have that I can pass that on to? Who's that faithful person that I can teach that'll be able to teach others also, that'll be able to continue that legacy, not legacy, but will be able to continue that lineage and move on in the company, grow in the company, grow with the company, run the company after I'm gone kind of situation. We'll talk about that a little more later as well. But one of the things, and I can speak from my own experience here as well, one of the main things that keeps people in a place, in a company, is the potential for growth. Being stretched, not stressed so much, or not stressed all the time anyway, but being stretched, being able to grow. And if someone's able to do that, that oftentimes can help keep them there more than just a higher salary. Somewhere else can pay them a higher salary. And if they're going to have two places, I can go to this large company or I can stay at the small company. I'm going to do the same thing in both places. I'm going to get the same results in both places, same super slow, rarely ever moving on kind of situation in both places. Then the employee is likely going to take the higher salary in that situation, yes. But as a smaller company, not even smaller, like just a closely held business where the leadership can make those decisions and is able to pivot quicker than like a big publicly traded corporation. In that smaller company, if I am providing opportunities for growth, opportunities for movement, opportunities to go forward for my employees, and they see that and they understand that, that can be a huge incentive for them to stay because they'll see, oh yeah, I can grow here. I can do more things. There's something about it when we're in a place that feels like not only are we growing, but there's a bigger purpose to it. There's a bigger mission that we're on, vision we're accomplishing, thing that we're working with. When I'm in that, I have more of a desire to stay in it and see it through. Um, so helping out employees like that, and that may take a little more work on the business owner part, may take more work on your part, on my part, to really think about how I can implement that for my company. And not only how I can implement it, but who am I going to actually reach out to and let them know, look, I want you to grow here and I want you to move on here. And I want to work with you in order to do that. So that to me is probably one of the biggest ways to keep somebody there. If you have a good culture, people like to be a part of that good culture and they want to be there. Having a workplace where people desire to be at work is very good. And that oftentimes will help you be very differentiated from the larger firms that may get a higher pay. Um, but I can tell you there are places, even large places like Chick-fil-A, they have a company culture there that they have developed and has been in place over a long period of time where even if they aren't paying as much as another big restaurant company might pay, people want to be there because of the culture that's there. And I'm saying that having actually worked in those places and knowing a lot of people that have been with the Chick-fil-A organization. So yeah, understand the culture, understand how you can be good to people, how you can help them grow those discipleship principles that we think of a lot of times in the church and are reserved for church. It really comes from teaching faithful men who are able to teach others also. So who is in my organization that is faithful that I can teach and they'll be able to teach others also. And really being intentional about that will help keep employees there for sure. Let's talk a little bit about some other operations areas. Here's the next question. Where can I increase productivity when customers are demanding a faster turnaround or more customization, digital experiences? That faster turnaround is really, we can talk about it in the digital age. I almost call it an Amazon thing because now that Amazon has so many different distribution centers all across the US and you can offer, well, all across the world really, but they offer, it was, free 2-day shipping. It's great. And then it's next day. Almost everything can be next day. Now there's same day delivery. Everything's more and more immediate, a faster turnaround, a quicker response time. I think about it in the public accounting that I've done, and people do want a fast turnaround on those things. Helping them understand where they're involved with it as well helps a lot. In other words, I've asked you these questions 3 times already. So the reason your, tax return or your financial statements aren't done yet is because you haven't gotten me the answers. And I really need those things. If you want this fast turnaround, then there's a responsibility there too. That's not always the case. If you are a plumber going into someone's house, it's usually not their issue as long as everything's clear and easy to get to. Why haven't you replaced the toilet yet? Well, we want as fast to turn around as possible, but helping the customer understand, okay, we've taken up the toilet, but the flange was broken. Now we had to dig in or cut out the old one, replace it with a new. There are different things we had to do to make sure you're taken care of and taken care of well. People understand that. Most people want the higher quality. If they're going to choose between, they want it done quickly, but they want a higher quality. They don't want to sacrifice the long-term quality of something in order to get it done quickly. Exceptions to that may be if somebody just wants to go in and grab a snack at, a convenience store. then they just want to get in and out and they want it to be as quick as possible. And they're really just looking to satisfy a quick craving that they have. And they don't really care as much about a higher quality in that situation. Understandable. So, understanding your customer base and what they really are desiring is very important. Do you really want just a quick turnaround? And when we're done with this plumbing job, now you're going to have leaks everywhere? Probably not. They want something that's going to last a long time. Do you really want just a quick turnaround as you grab the snack and go? Probably so. So how can I make it easier for them just to come in, and whether it's vending machines or easier ways to pay, point of sale system at the desk where they can just come in and self checkout or pay with, Apple Pay, Google Pay, something like that. Those are things to think about, right? And that also goes into the digital experiences side of things too. If I'm thinking about it in an accounting world, how does the digital experience go into it? There are tools that I can implement where people can do most everything, if not everything, having to do with taxes, with financial statements, bookkeeping. They can do it from their phone, and it can be pretty well automated. Where I ask for a list of things, I need all these things. They provide what they provide. They'll check off what they say they've provided. I get it in, I check it all. I check off the same things, or if there's something they haven't provided, I may provide some clarification there. Or if there are things they still need, then a follow-up email is automatically sent. Excuse me. And they can take pictures with their phone, and it ends up scanning it in, turning it into a PDF, makes it easy and light for me to handle from a digital workspace kind of environment. So there are definitely things that can go into it. It's more, what is your situation? What is your business? And really getting into it and seeing from someone else's perspective. This goes back to considering other people. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, quick to hear, right? Try to understand, what is it you're really asking for? I know you say you want a quick turnaround. There have been times where people were like, I need you to get my taxes done. I need you to get them done. I need them done by this date. Okay, why do you need them done by that date? Well, I've got this mortgage I'm trying to get, and we need to have this information in. Okay, what is it they're asking for? They want a tax return. Okay. Is there anything else they would take in addition to, or because we don't even have your, tax forms from such and such entity yet, so we can't provide you a final tax return? Well, I asked, and they said they would take, an estimate, or they would take the last 2 years' tax returns. Okay, now we have things that we can get them, that we can have a quicker turnaround with. So understanding where they're coming from and what their actual question is, I think is huge. I think it's a very big part of it. Let's go to the next question. Okay, so if I own a business and I am looking to transfer that ownership, either to family or like kids or employees, things like that, but I have conflict. There's infighting. There are certain employees that I know that'll be unhappy if I do just transfer it straight to the kids. There are my kids, they don't want to be in the business, those sort of things. How do I transfer ownership? Because I really want to pass this down. Well, again, first things first, understand what they want. I have to ask my kids, is this something that you want? Is this something you would take care of, you would work with if you had it? If the answer is no, okay, why is that? Well, I see you working all the time, Dad. I don't want to be working that much. Okay, now I might need to start rethinking how I run the business and who runs the business. Can I find someone else that can come in, work with me and my kids or my employees that I'm looking to transfer this business ownership over to, and maybe they can be working their way into a CEO type position, which is different than ownership. Let's be very clear about that. And that can be the case even in a closely held business. The owner does not have to be the CEO. The owner can have the final say, but I can delegate more things like that to someone who's a CEO, a COO, Chief Operational Officer, whoever that might need to be. I can delegate a lot of those things. Now, there's a difference between delegation and abdication. I don't want to abdicate things and just say, okay, you go off and you do all this stuff. I'm just going to go collect the check and leave. Now, I want to be sure that things are running well. So I have an oversight, but I give a lot of leeway. And as this person that I want to be able to run the company starts running it and running it well, I start giving them more and more leeway to do things, even giving them leeway to start delegating tasks from themselves as well. But I can set that example and I can show that to people. Maybe that's what will start enticing my kids to say, you know, actually, you do pretty well here and I like what you're doing. I'd like to do the same thing. Excuse me. I've seen one business, actually, the son ended up going into the same business his father went into because he saw that his father did well, didn't overwork himself, was running the business well, and he liked it a lot. He did not take over his father's business. He did not try to take over his father's business. I think there were two reasons for that. One, the son was ready to get into things, and the father was not ready to divest the business yet. But number two was the father made some decisions that were more personal in nature. And the son did not like these decisions. And there was a conflict there. And I say this as though this has only happened once. I've seen it several times. And there's a conflict there, and there's kind of a rift in the family. And therefore, the family member does not want to continue on in the business. I think it's very important to understand those dynamics as well. What we do in our personal lives doesn't necessarily separate us from our businesses, especially the more closely held those businesses are. We'll get into that a little bit more later, but in interest of not going on too long on these things, let's continue on. I say later. Let's go to that next. This is more of a legal and insurance and liability kind of question. Am I properly protected from liabilities? Right now, I can't speak to this. I'm not a lawyer, and I can't tell you exactly what to do. Yesterday's episode that I put out has have I chosen the right business structure, and that goes in. We go into that a lot, like what actually does kind of protect you and your assets personally from what's going on with the business. There are ways you can set that up. You can set up an LLC that can help you out a lot. You can be an S corporation, C corporation, different things like that. But one of the things that will pierce that corporate veil, so to speak, pierce the veil, is when I start blurring the lines between my personal and business side of things. And we just talked about the personal side having an effect on what happens in the business. But if I'm using my business checking account like a personal account, and I'm going and I'm buying groceries, and I'm buying ballet lessons, or I'm paying car payments with it, that's my own personal car, things like that, I start piercing that veil and opening myself up to more vulnerabilities potentially than I would otherwise. No guarantee that it's definitely going to be that way, but I need to keep those things. I need to understand those are separate. My personal and my business are separate things when it comes to especially checking account, the way I run things. Those are not the same. That's probably the best way that I know to be protected legally, insurance-wise. Definitely get with an insurance agent, get with a lawyer as far as the legal things, and really understand that. get with an insurance agent, understand what needs to go in there. Do you need E&O, errors and emissions insurance? Do you need umbrella policies? Do you need um, other kinds of either workman's comp or general liability? Different things can come into play for your business depending on what your business does, who you employ, where you're going. DoorDash, likely you're not going to need insurance in that case. I mean, other than just your personal insurance stuff. But if I'm doing, if I'm a lawyer, I'm probably going to want some E&O, some errors and omissions, in case anyone comes after me for that. If I'm if I'm in the construction industry, if I'm a subcontractor or a contractor, then I'm going to have workman's compensation, right? And probably some general liability as well, and umbrella policies and things like that. So there's all kinds of insurance that goes into it. And I may also want to increase my personal insurance. If I have been piercing that corporate veil, if I don't do a good job of keeping my business and personal separate, I may want to make sure I have some policies in place on my personal side as well. But ultimately, the best protection from liability, the best protection is to treat people well. Consider others as more important than yourself. Don't look only to my own interest, but consider the interest of others also. Loving people like Christ. And when I do that, I really help protect myself more than I do any other way, because people are less likely to try to come after me for anything. That's really the biggest thing. And then just trusting in God. God has everything under control, and He is there. And He's going to take care of me, and not holding too tightly onto things. As I build a business, I am more and more connected to it, and I can build my identity around that business. Especially the more successful it is, the more I'm like, yeah, that's me. That's what I do. Greenhouse Services, that's my business. Yeah, I'm Adam Green, the president of Greenhouse Services. And then all of it can go away. What happens to my identity there? My identity never changes, though, if it's rooted and placed in Christ. Then it's always what it is. And anything can happen in this world, in this life. In this world, I will have trouble, as Christ said, but I take joy and I'm of good cheer because Christ has overcome the world. So that's the best way to protect myself. It really comes down, you want to be smart and wise about it, but in the end, it really comes down to a mindset thing. How am I looking at it? Now let's look at another piece of technology or innovation side of things. So this one has to do more with e-commerce, social media, artificial intelligence. I mean, that's a big thing that's coming in and being, yes, it is something you're going to have to implement in some way, one way or another, even if it's just as much as, think of Google. Okay. So 20 years ago, 25 years ago for sure, 20 years ago, search engines were not a big thing. I mean, you still used them, but it wasn't like the thing that you did all the time. It wasn't something that was dependent upon. So 20 years ago, when people started using search engines, people had the same question as they do with, say, AI right now. How do I implement this into my business? Well, it really kind of naturally happened. There wasn't a whole lot that really had to be done and forced there. Again, if you'll be patient, you won't have to wait as long. It will come. AI things and AI tools are just being implemented into the softwares that we use anyway. I guarantee you, if you use software for your business, you've already started noticing this. In the programs that you use, you've seen AI come into it. Even in In the Google workspace, Google Docs, and things like that, they've implemented AI into it. And emails. Okay, you want me to rewrite this email for you? Sure, go ahead and rewrite it and make it sound better. And then I go back and make sure it actually sounds like me and it's what I intend to say. And I use it more like a good intern. I need to oversee everything that's being done and I need to double check it. But I think that AI is really it'll be there. Now, if you want to be intentional about it, that's where there's more of a conversation. What do you want to be intentional about doing? Where do you want to go with it? What about things like e-commerce and social media? Um, E-commerce, if you don't have a way to check out digitally, if you don't have a way to get paid through credit cards, then you're going to limit your growth. I mean, that's just the way that it is. Checks are they're almost gone. They're almost out the door and completely done. There are still a few things that people write checks for, but it's not often anymore. If you have something that's a recurring service or a recurring payment, finding ways to make that automated like utilities do. Um, yeah, you have a different, say, electric bill every month, a different water bill every month, but it can be automated. You can automate it to where you automatically have that paid off every month anyway. So if there's finding ways to implement those things into your company is very good from a technology perspective. Social media, I go back and forth on. If I don't have a purpose for doing it, then it's not really going to go probably the way that I've planned it to. I have a good friend who is in real estate and talked for a little while about being more present on social media. Okay, why are you trying to be more present? Are you trying to get 1 million followers? No, I don't want to do that. I'm just trying to be more consistent, more. And eventually he came to the realization of why he wanted to do it. And it really has more to do with a consistency factor on his own part, being consistent with something and that helping out a lot. But also it was a um, marketing SEO kind of situation to where the more you're out there, even if people are just sort of, they're not reacting to your content, but they see you, that can put that presence, especially for somebody like a real estate agent. I'm not selling a house every day. But when I do want to sell a house, I know where to go because that's what's been popping up over and over in my Instagram feed or something like that. Uh, so those things can be very important to do. Now, the way that this guy had to do it, he wasn't going to be the one posting to social media all the time. So he did have to have someone else doing that, editing the videos and getting them posted and getting them up there. But once he did, and now that he's doing it, getting started is a main thing. I'm starting right now with with these videos that I'm doing, and it's not going to be good to start. I'm not good right now, but eventually they'll get better, and they'll get better, and they'll get better, and then I'll keep doing it and keep doing it, and hopefully they'll really establish a little bit of a presence. And if nothing else, if I get nothing else out of this, then I'm hoping to get some SEO for the website, some search engine optimization, and that'll change with AI. The more people are using AI to search, understanding how that's all implemented together, I'll get there. But the important thing for me is just to be patient with it. Continue on, be consistent, little by little, plant those seeds, and then just kind of watch them grow over time. It's the way that God has designed it. The strongest trees take a long time to grow and dig deep, deep roots. Ones that pop up really quickly because the water's right there at the top of the soil, they get knocked over a lot quicker too. So I'd rather have deeper roots and something that lasts longer than just grow quickly. But the last thing I want to address, which we've kind of addressed already here, but this is a question of what about work-life balance? Especially if you eventually plan to step back from what you're doing. What is a good work-life balance? And the thing I really want to point to here is this is kind of cultural, maybe very cultural. this did not used to be the way people thought about things. If you think about the Sabbath day, okay, in the Bible, so you have a 6-day work week, and then on the seventh day you rest. And that seventh day had to be mandated for rest because otherwise people would just work 7 days a week. Work was life. There wasn't a separation between work and life. And in our culture today, we kind of see work as the thing we go and do, and then life we come to, and this is what we want to do. Work we have to do. Life we want to do. I'm going to say this as well, and maybe stretching a bit theologically, but I think that is something that Christ paid for as well on the cross. The effect of sin when it came into the world is that not that you will have to work, but that work will be hard. It's going to be hard. So you're going to have to work the land with thorns and thistles. But before that, if you look at Adam and Eve in the garden, God put them there to work the garden. And that was life. That was good things that they were doing. Work should be creativity. It should be something that we're building. And if you're a business owner, especially, that is what we have the opportunity to do, to identify with God in that way, with our Father in that way, to be his ambassadors, his messengers, even in the businesses that we build and the way that we build them, the way that we handle our employees, our customers, all around the board. So work, I think, is life in a lot of ways. And I may not be able to do this work for all of my life in the same way I'm doing it now, but the more I can implement what is my gifts, my calling, so to speak, into my work, the less I'm going to be worried about as much of a work-life balance. Now, I still need to make sure that I'm giving proper attention to my kids, my wife, my community, all of that stuff. Sure, absolutely. But in my own mind, I don't want to separate out work and life and have them as a completely, like I do one thing over here and then I do work over here. It's more, I do both things. Now I'm going to work outside. I'm going to plant the fields and tend to that. I think it's Proverbs 24:27. And then I'm going to go build my house. But all of it is life. And all of it is what God has called us to be, his witnesses and messengers throughout, no matter what's happening. And even in those troubles and trials that we have in the world, knowing that Christ has overcome them and Christ is in me, so I overcome them as well. And I go forward and I move forward in that. I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to talking with you next time. Thanks.